Psst, check out my Patreon. Why is this not a Mojo title card? Like, I'm sorry, I know I've brought this up a few times already in previous reviews for Season 3, but what on earth happened to the episode classifications? Seriously, Season 1 and 2, for the most part, held this up rather well in consistently giving the title cards the appropriate color dependent on the main character of the episode, but then here comes Season 3 to make practically every single episode a mixed card except for the Buttercup ones. Coming off of the heels of a less exciting episode is Brainlord, a slightly more intriguing episode, but not as standout as many of the other Season 3 episodes I've reviewed so far. At the very least, I can say it is prominent for being the last Mojo-centric episode in the reboot, although not his last role, as he's still got a couple of side appearances coming up. Brainlord is, as it stands, an episode that I actually don't mind. It's inoffensive for the most part, although as usual there is one major glaring problem along the way that I will be getting to as the review unfolds. This episode can basically be summed up as a story about a superhero that comes from an alien planet and befriends the girls after helping them defeat a supervillain together. Let's dive in.
Once I destroy you poser humans, you will finally understand how sad and empty life is.
Our episode begins with the girls fighting Gothra, the same monster that was seen in Bucket Boy when Barry was trying to sell gingerbread scones to the mayor, although it appears that the monster has since been given a change of voice since the last time we saw it. You know, it feels like Gothra here could have been an actual monster character that had a whole episode dedicated to them, considering, you know, they talk and actually have a unique design. But sadly, this is only the second and last time that this monster ever appears in the show. No Monster of the Week this time around, although at the reboot's pace, it's more like Monster of the Year. The girls are in the middle of attempting to bring down Gothra when who else but the titular character of the episode shows up to help save the day.
Now feel the might of my mighty Brain Blast!
Brainlord here is thankfully not just a Major Man ripoff, so luckily we're not going to be doing the same song and dance that Major Competition had already given us 20 years ago. Instead, he's a friendly superhero who's in the middle of trying to find a new home after his previous world had been destroyed by a giant meteor collision, and tragic backstory much? Well, given the rather convenient timing, he of course helps the girls take down Gothra with his enhanced magical mind powers, and the girls are instantly amazed with his display of heroism. This urges them to ask him who he is and where he came from, and as with practically every superhero known to humankind, Brainlord here has an origin story revolving around his people being obsessed with overshining their brain helmets. Yeah, I don't really dig it, but that's what the episode's going with. Turns out that they actually shine their helmets so much that it reflected the light of a nearby star so perfectly, it blinded their entire planet and prevented them from being able to see the giant meteor heading straight for it. Don't ask me how society functioned in pure blinding white light, but somehow these guys made it work. Until their entire civilization was demolished in that devastating eradication of an entire planet's life forms, that is. And the only reason Brainlord even survived that catastrophe was because he was getting his car washed another galaxy over. I don't really know why he had to go to an entirely new galaxy if it was just one planet that was destroyed in the collision, but maybe their planet's the only one in the galaxy he's from? I don't know, just a theory.
That's the saddest origin story I've ever heard.
I mean, yeah, it is kinda sad to realize one day that literally everybody you know and love is just gone. That is pretty messed up, but would I say that's the saddest origin story ever? Debatable, especially considering the concept of the origin seems more like an exaggerated silly joke than a serious detriment to Brainlord's character, so having the girls overreact like this seems contradictory. Luckily, the girls are kind enough to invite him over for dinner, and Brainlord humbly accepts this invitation. And this is the first decision the episode makes that I wish hadn't occurred. It reveals to us that Brainlord is actually...
See you tonight for your doom!
Mojo Jojo. Yeah, so it's revealed to the audience that this is actually Mojo's latest scheme in trying to take down the PPGs once and for all, but I really am not a fan of this idea. I don't know if anyone else has caught on yet, but considering how far we are into Season 3, I think I can finally say that Mojo seems to have finally taken over as the main antagonist of the series, as he has been the recurring villain of a multitude of episodes now. Mojo actually appears in 18 episodes this season, including Brainlord, 10 of which have been primary character roles. In Season 1, he had 5 main appearances and 6 side roles, if memory serves, and in Season 2 he's had 6 main appearances and 3 minor roles. Now, considering the fact that his primary roles and side roles have both practically doubled since then, I'd say that's definitely an improvement for Mojo. He's finally cementing himself as the primary antagonist of the Powerpuff Girls. Not that he wasn't in prior episodes, certainly he still is, it just doesn't feel like that because the number of times he actually appeared in Season 1 and 2 were rather low. In fact, I'm pretty sure Princess appeared just as many times, if not maybe 1 or 2 less than Mojo in Season 1. It's been a while since I watched those earlier episodes though, so I may have missed 1 or 2 here and there, but regardless, there's substantial evidence to show that Season 3 has certainly been a step up for Mojo's character, and I'm glad he's more recurring now than he used to be, even if the show did butcher his personality quite a bit. I'm currently listing all of the episodes that Mojo appeared in on screen for you right now, depicting primary and secondary appearances separately so you can see which ones are which, and I'd say that's a pretty substantial increase in appearances compared to when the reboot began, wouldn't you say? Yeah, I'm really digging most of the Mojo episodes we've actually gotten this season because it feels more at home to what the Powerpuff Girls was. Even if he has been more dopey and non-threatening most of the time, Brain Freeze, Tagalong, Mojo the Great have all been episodes where he actually tries to execute an evil scheme. Yeah, I realize the quality of Mojo episodes fluctuates, but the fact that we're getting them at all like that is an improvement, which, I mean, it's kind of sad that the bare minimum feels like a major stepping stone for this show. Anyways, in an exposition dump that goes on for a little too long, Mojo explains his basic plan of taking the Powerpuff Girls down.
Once Mojo has gotten inside the lab, Mojo will blow up the black hole generator, creating a wormhole that will suck the Puny Puffs into an endless vortex of doom.
I do like the crayon drawings as a way to present his scheme to us. However, this feels more at home with a Bubbles monologue rather than a Mojo one. This art style doesn't really scream Mojo Jojo, you know? I kinda expected some more diabolical and scientific aspects to it, maybe even a little darker in presentation. I will say, however, I do like the idea of Mojo's superhero persona being tied to brains because, well, he's obviously got an oversized brain of his own. Not entirely sure how he actually got his brain blast attack to work, unless Mojo had that the whole time, but then why wouldn't he have used this more often, you know? Anyways, he heads on over to the Utonium residence where the professor had made him the greatest spaghetti and meatballs he's ever tasted. And quite frankly, I don't know what to make of that because it is certainly strange. This is also the exact same scene that was done when Buttercup tried Mojo's waffles in Not So Secret Service. Repeating jokes again, I see. After this, the girls also treat Brainlord to a song that welcomes him to Townsville, although it also goes on for way too long and really is all over the place.
Welcome to Townsville, Brainlord. We hope you are playing bored.
Okay, like I'm obviously not asking for a masterpiece here or anything, but between the desynchronized performance and the stiff animation, this comes across worse than it actually is. Or what it's intended to. Like, it doesn't look amateurish, which is what this sequence should have been going for, obviously with the Powerpuff Girls being 6-year-olds. It just looks unintentionally bad. I mean, I don't know, maybe this was the intent, but this could have come across a bit better if the animation was at least a little smoother.
You like them, please write them down. Now vote number 1. Check out these. Bum, bum, bum.
Also, the fact that this show has established plenty of times before that the girls are way better at singing than this, but who cares about continuity, right? After this song, Brainlord takes some time away for himself and tries to sneak into the professor's lab, but the door is blocked by a security system that requires him to answer the following question. What is the Powerpuff Girls' favorite thing? Since he of course doesn't know the answer, he then needs to try and pry it from them by spending more time together. And to do so, they head to a nearby amusement park where next we get a montage. At the end of this montage, the girls tell Brainlord that their favorite thing is actually family, so he runs out of there in an admittedly comedic fashion and back to the Utonium residence to put that in their system.
Family is our favorite thing.
Well, that's just super. Wait, what did you just say?
Seriously, I love the way Bubbles just tells him it's family and he's like, see ya. So, Mojo gains access, goes downstairs, plants an explosive on the black hole device, and prepares for the worst. At least until the girls call him upstairs to spend more time with him as Brainlord. One tiny nitpick that doesn't change anything, and I get why it was done this way, is that Mojo also takes down his Brainlord disguise when he's alone. Now, I get that this is done for the audience to see and not any of the characters in the world of the show, but why do we as the audience need to see his regular face if we already know it's Mojo? In universe, he's running the risk of getting caught and having his true identity revealed to the other characters, so I can't say I agree with this decision to have Mojo remove his digital disguise every time he's alone when he's still at risk for being discovered. Again, this is probably a minor gripe and it's not ruining the episode by any stretch, but I don't see the decision for him doing this as being a necessity for the plot. And so, as I said, the girls call him upstairs, and next we get a montage of Brainlord and the girls doing more fun activities together. Wow, 2 montages in 1 episode? That's a little more than usual. Also, I love how when I first started the whole next we get a montage thing, season 2 hadn't even premiered yet, and now we're in the final stretch of season 3, and over the course of the entire series, the frequency of montages has not changed at all. Like, it feels like we can't go more than 3 episodes without a montage of some kind being presented. And as I said before, the use of montage in and of itself isn't a bad thing, but the show definitely relies on it as a crutch to imply changes over time rather than putting the effort in to develop things naturally very, very frequently. At the end of this, we find that Mojo is at the fridge eating more spaghetti as the Utoniums enter the room and give him a scrapbook of sorts as a way of including him in their family. Ever since his home planet was destroyed, to the girls anyways, he's had nobody there for them, so they're choosing to fill that gap for him. And if that isn't the sweetest thing, I don't know what is. Like, that's actually a genuinely heartwarming thing to see in the Powerpuff reboot. I know it doesn't usually get things like this right, but when it does, it makes me feel really good. Of course, because Mojo kept putting off the explosive rather than just disabling it outright for whatever reason, he forgets about it in this moment and it goes off, causing a huge calamity to occur from inside the house. All 5 of them go careening down towards the giant sphere of darkness enveloping the home, and the professor says someone needs to detonate an explosive from inside of it in order to destroy it, even though that really doesn't make any sense scientifically speaking, but okay. And after some debate, Brainlord sacrifices himself to rescue the rest of the Utoniums.
Remember me!
We will! Thanks, Mojo!
Yes, and never more. Wait, you knew I was more.
And this is the one major thing that I don't like. When, where, why, and how did the girls figure this out? I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't have realized it was Mojo, but why did they even go on with this facade of not knowing it was him? What did they have to gain? What was the character's motivation? Was it to try and turn him good? That's a fair guess, but we never once get any sort of indication of intent from the characters to verify this. And even if that was their intent, assuming my hypothesis is true, we all know it's not going to last because of the status quo anyways. This decision just completely loses me on what the point of this episode was even about. Before I knew the girls were acting this way, I was under the impression it was because they wanted to help a soul in need. Now, I know they were just toying with Mojo, but I don't know why exactly. Why have Bubbles utter this sentence if it changes the character's entire reasoning for this in the remaining 10 seconds of the plot? It creates several questions without any form of acknowledgement and then just refuses to answer any of them. Mojo's reaction of, "You knew?" was the same reaction that I had, but not in an, "Oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming" sort of way. It was a, "But why though" sort of way. This feels like a writing choice made simply to elicit a cheap shock in the audience instead of leaving the girls with a lasting memory of this genuine alien man making a noble sacrifice to save them. This entire episode could have served as a reinforcement for the girls that they did the right thing by giving Brainlord's life a new purpose again after all of the tragedy that he had been through. There was such a great lesson here, and it would have been so much better if the girls never found out it was Mojo the whole time. Ignorance is bliss, and in certain situations, that can be very, very beneficial for both sides. Revealing that the girls knew just undermines all of that. Even if they did know, but Mojo never found out, that would have been better than just flat out spewing it like this, because at least Mojo's perspective could have been saved. Now, if Mojo never redeemed himself here, this would be a different story, but he made right by his wrongdoing, and as such, that is another great lesson on behalf of the antagonist's part. Mojo, if we're looking at this episode specifically by itself, didn't have a first-hand experience of their family. He doesn't know what their home life is like, and as the second montage clearly indicates, he didn't want to blow up the black hole generator because he realized how great it was spending time with them. He essentially learns that sometimes people aren't as awful as you perceive them to be. Brainlord is essentially Mojo's version of Porbucks. He's used to experiencing the girls beating him up, so of course he would see them as enemies on a regular basis. His perception is skewed. But after experiencing their kindness, it changes him, and for him to realize the girls were just leading him on the whole time reverts him back to his original mindset because the status quo is God and everything he experienced was a lie to him. As a standalone episode, I would have loved this ending had Bubbles not admitted they knew the truth because it sabotages all of what I just said. Hell, if the show even knew that season 3 was the final season of the reboot and it wasn't continuing after this, I would have written this as Mojo's conclusion. This is Reboot Mojo's final episode, and he ends the series with a change of heart. I think that would be totally fine. Sure, it wouldn't be as funny as the Powerpuff Girls rule, but I think it would personally be a fitting end for Reboot JoJo's character. However, that's just a missed opportunity and not a huge hindrance on what we got. If I can expand on the negatives, let's consider the episode's premise by comparing it to another season 3 episode, Not So Secret Service. In that episode, Mojo had first-hand experience spending time with the girls, doing all sorts of things together, and he ran away screaming after a short time because he couldn't take the agony of it all. So how is this any different than what he's doing here? Contradictions, baby. Yeah, I'm sorry, but Brainlord blatantly goes against what Not So Secret Service established and once again proves that the reboot does not give a shit about its own continuity or characters and writes them into whatever situation it wants and has them act however it wants, regardless of how contradictory it is to other episodes that have come before, because the supposed moral, which the episode screws up royally, is deemed more important. You know, like I said at the beginning, I genuinely like 95% of this episode, but that last minute decision, that final ending line that just changes everything in the entire way you view the episode, ruins it for me. I love the friendship and generosity that is displayed by the Utoniums in this episode, and it gives me a very feel-good experience that is utterly hampered in the end and undone because of the last remaining seconds where Bubbles admits they knew it was Mojo. I guess I should have also added that the professor says he has no idea where the black hole takes you after you get sucked in, but it doesn't end up taking Mojo anywhere interesting, it just tosses him in a dumpster somewhere in the middle of Townsville, so it's not so much of a black hole as it is a portal, and it sends him to a very lackluster location at that. This episode had so much potential for me, and to have it hindered by the surprise reveal really stings. But alas, there's nothing that can be done about that. Oh, I see the potential in this episode. It could have been great, but instead, it's just good all the way until the ending. Oh well, that marks the end of my Brainlord review. Oh, actually, another thing is that the mayor is credited for this episode despite never actually appearing. Okay, now it's the end.